Gator talk, news, analysis, and opinions on the Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform or watch us on Facebook Live between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. every weekday. Pod Up, because we are Gator fans. So say it's great to be a Florida Gator.
Good morning and welcome to a Wednesday edition of the program. It's Pod Up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Got a good show lined up today. We'll crank it up here with JC in just a second. Second portion of the program, we'll be joined by CBS Senior NFL Columnist Pete Prisco. Talk a little NFL, get his thoughts on the playoffs and a lot of the coaches that have been fired who may replace those guys. If you missed it last night, Alabama loses again. I mean, they're having a horrible 2-day sporting event. I know JC has lost sleep. He has not won a game in 2 days. Good morning, JC. You're on the Titan MR hotline. You lost Monday night. You lost last night to your heated rival, the Auburn Tigers. Georgia and Auburn just kicking y'all's tail right now.
Whatever will I do? It's just the way it goes. And that Auburn team, man, watch those guys. Those guys are pretty darn good. Good for Bruce Pearl. He's really worked hard to get that program right, coming off his little issues. And man, they have something cooking up there. And I think the whole conference, for that matter, has something cooking. And it could be very, very, very good for the SEC, I would think, as we go through the season and into March eventually for the conference as a whole. But, yeah, I mean, congratulations to Georgia. The Bulldogs are the 2021 national champions, highly deserving of that. All the stories that surround the team are well received and understood and documented. I'm happy for Kirby Smart. I got to say I am. I think he is a fantastic coach. I loved him when he coached at Alabama. They had some of the best defenses in college football history when he was there. That is an absolute fact. They showed up Monday night with purpose. And, I think most people expected to see that type of team play. And were caught off guard in the SEC championship, but for all intents and purposes, they deserve what they got. They're the champs, and they're not going anywhere. Alabama folks, don't feel sorry for Alabama. It won't be going anywhere either. Those players will all be back, mostly for Alabama as well. So you're looking at two teams that will likely be at the very top of the pecking order again in 2022, and just get used to it, because right now, the players that you saw in that field are really such a cut above what I think the rest of the country has to offer right now. And Alabama, for its part, I think played hard. I think they went, and I think we saw a team that was vulnerable, especially after the game against Florida here in September. And I think we saw a team that had to overachieve in many areas because of their youth, because of their turnover. And I think they did that for the most part. I really do. I mean, they won the conference. And they had a great year. Win or lose, they still had a great year. A lot of things to overcome, and that's not an excuse, but that is the reality when you have a young team. And I think you'll see these guys right back in the thick of it next year. So this is certainly a big time now for the University of Georgia and Kirby Smart. The quarterbacks, he's on Good Morning America. I don't know how the guy could talk. I mean, obviously they were all up all night last night, or the night after the game, and celebrating, rightfully so. So it's a good. I think the conference is in great shape too. I mean, if you look at Georgia winning it, Alabama playing for it, you look at the way the basketball is turning out right now. You look at the baseball championship that was won in this conference. Man, it's. I don't know if it's ever been any better. I don't know if it's ever been any better for the SEC than it is now.
No, and as I said yesterday or the day before, most of the experts think the SEC's got the top-ranked basketball league in the conference. I mean, in the country. John says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mellon Law. He goes, all the players will be back? ? You had 7 or 8 hit the transfer portal. The ones that hit the transfer portal weren't playing, though, I don't believe, other than Billingsley, who has had a lot of issues at Alabama since he's been there. Georgia had a couple guys into the transfer portal too. So look, here's the deal. Between Alabama, Georgia, and A&M, it's ridiculous the amount of players and the quality of players that they're bringing in. Chris says Bama and Georgia. He says Bama and Georgia won't be dominating the talent pool going forward now that it's a free-for-all. A&M class, best money could buy. Well, that's true. They're number one, but trust me, Alabama and Georgia ain't far behind. So it's it's interesting. I do think. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt. Finish your thoughts. Sorry about that.
Well, no, I was just going to say, I was going back to the game. My analysis before the game. That they had to get after Bryce Young in different ways, and they did. I mean, he played phenomenal. Obviously, losing his receivers, we all know that. But look, he is an elite thrower of the football. And but no, Georgia's defense just got after him. Andy says here on Facebook Live, how does Bear Bryant's grandson Paul Tyson hit the transfer portal and leave Alabama? Because he wants to play. And he will never play at Alabama. He may never play in any other schools. He was highly recruited. He's a big dude. But, look, he is never going to take a snap at Alabama, ever.
No, I mean, the only reason we talk about him is because of whose grandson he is. I mean, we have to see him play somewhere before we really make an assessment. And I think he's doing the right thing for him by trying to get himself more playing time. And when I say all players coming back, in a literal sense, you don't have to take me in a literal sense here. I'm simply saying that, at the end of the game, when Saban is talking about his two young sophomores who literally put that team on their back, and how Will Anderson Jr. wasn't in New York is a travesty. So basically, he's saying, and I think Nick Saban, by the way, for his part, really learned a lot this year. And I think he has a lot of love for this team in particular. And I think he changed somewhat this year. He became we saw a softer side of Nick Saban. And what he said about Anderson and Bryce Young at the end of the game was tremendous. And the kids need to hear that. They need to hear that kind of thing publicly. And I think it's a good thing. But no, those guys, listen, folks, bet against Alabama if you want to. Go ahead. But if they're healthy, that team can play with anybody, and we all know it. And I think Georgia is the same way. I mean, you right now they are not – it's so far – they are so far ahead of everybody in the SEC East. It's not even – it's like – I don't know if I've ever seen a disparity this large. Even when Florida was winning everything in the 90s, and they were, Tennessee was right there. But Georgia is so far ahead of everybody in the East right now. I don't know if it's ever been like this in that side of the division. And I think eventually when Oklahoma and Texas come into the conference, I think we're going to do away with divisions, to be honest. But I don't know that. I just think that's probably how it's going to end up. And, again, the league is just going to get stronger and stronger. The money that's going to come flushing into these schools with the next television contract is unimaginable. And it's just not gonna stop. But right now there's no question how far ahead Georgia is from the rest of that side of the division. And as far as Alabama goes, you can bet at them at your own risk. Good luck, because I don't think they're going anywhere, folks. They're a young team.
We got Andy says Bear Bryant rolling over in his grave. He took snaps in 2021. I just looked. I mean, he was 10 of 16 for 150 yards. He's the same age, or either a year older than Bryce Young. He's never going to play at Alabama. I think he was the holder also. So I have no problem with the kid leaving. I mean, he wants to play. He's a big guy, big, strong-arm guy. Somebody asked here, will Billy Napier go after him? I don't know. Billy went after Jack Miller because Billy recruited him when he was at Arizona State.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
Lauren says, Will Anderson is one heck of a player. I knew he was a player, but when you really watch him, wow. Yeah, he's a comparing him, and I'm going to get Pete Prisco. I'm going to ask Pete's thoughts on this because he follows the NFL a lot more than we do, how people can compare the Hutchinson guy and Will Anderson, how they can even be the same guy. Eyeball test tells you they're not.
QB, we talked about this already. The Aiden Hutchinson thing is about geography. It's about that part of the country needing some representation as far as I'm concerned. And he's a good player. Let's face it. He's a really good player, really good. But, man, his numbers don't add up to 31. And, that's on paper. I'm not making that up. That's the truth. I talked about Will Anderson before the season when most folks didn't even know who he was. He's a true sophomore. And he reminds me of Derek Thomas, the great Alabama linebacker, Hall of Famer who died young. The guy was just unbelievable. Redefine a position along with Lawrence Taylor. Those were the two guys, if you ask me. And Will Anderson is right there in those footsteps, trying to mold himself along those lines and eventually become a first-round draft pick. And, he got hurt early in the season. He played the Florida game not at 100%. And after that, I think he just got stronger and he got better. And his numbers were really freakish. I mean, the tackles for losses that kid had this season are amongst the best you've ever seen in history. And let me just say this about Georgia's defense. You got Kirby Smart coaching that defense just like you did the 2011, 2012 Alabama defenses. You got the same type of personality. Those guys, if you look at them, the amount of physicality that they bring to the field is unmatched in college football. You look at their bodies, you look at their athleticism. When you saw Ringo run down that tight end down the sideline, when you saw Alabama receivers dropping passes, that is somewhat caused by good teams and great defenses. Alabama dropped a drag route in the end zone for a touchdown. They dropped a third down on the 5-yard line that was then followed by a blocked field goal. Those were plays that won the game those influenced the game for Georgia. And part of the reason I think these kids were dropping balls and things were happening like that and getting run down the sideline is because of how great Georgia was on defense and how athletic those players are. I mean, nobody had really talked about Lewis Cine. Lewis Cine was so good on that field the other night. Of course, he won the Defensive Player of the Game award. But Lewis Cine is not somebody we talked about all year long, unless you were in the Georgia chat room. We talked about the kid up front, the lineman. But God almighty, those guys are – I mean, you got 8 NFL players on that defense right now today. And that's just absurd. And that's the kind of team Kirby Smart coaches. And that's the kind of team he recruits. And that's why he's a great coach.
Yeah, their leader of their defense, their little linebacker, 17. I can't even think of his name right now, but he's a Mississippi boy. They got him out of the state of Mississippi.
Nakobe.
Nakobe Dean, yeah.
Nakobe Dean, my God. And the kid that made the tackle on the 2-point conversion, his name escapes me. It starts with a T. I mean, they have so much. And listen, other teams can endeavor to be that way as well. And I think Napier is going to build Florida along that model. Folks are going to have to be patient, though. It's going to take 2 to 5 years for that to happen, but he's going to get the time to do it. And those are the kind of players he's looking for. And they're not everywhere. You're going to have to really work hard to get them. But Georgia did. And if Georgia did, Florida can. Alabama has been doing it for years. Ohio State's doing it. These are the top 3 teams going into 2022. It's Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State. And it's because of the depth and the kinds of players they recruit.
John says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Melton Law, speaking of patience, he says Gator fans need to look at Kirby and how long it took him to reach the mountaintop. Got to be patient with Billy. What is this, Kirby's 5th or 6th year?
Well, he was there in 2017, so it's got to be going into his 5th, I would think.
Yeah, and he's played for 2 national titles, so that's pretty good. We got a text on the Titan and More text line. Comes from our good friend Daryl. He says, good morning, guys. Shane, do you think Jaleel Billingsley could fit in Billy Napier's offense, or do you think he might wind up at USC? I do not think we go after Billingsley. I think he's very, very talented, but he's had some team issues, I would say. He played really well, I guess it was last year, but, he didn't play in a lot of games this year. He and Saban had some off-the-field issues. I don't know them all because I don't follow Alabama. JC may know better. But I don't know where the kid is from. When you say USC, maybe he's a California kid. JC, do you know where this kid is from?
I can't off the top of my head, but he was productive for them up until this year. This year, for some reason, things just went south. Maybe he didn't feel like he was getting the ball. I don't really know. I don't go into the chat rooms and waste my day doing that kind of thing, but I do know his production level dropped off dramatically, and now he's probably looking for another place to try to pick that up. I don't know why he would want to leave Alabama, but he did. So good luck. I mean, that's fine. He can, look, he's a good player. You just got to get him, he caught a touchdown against the Gators in the game in September on a great pass. He's talented, but to me, he's more of a tight end type of guy. I don't know really why they didn't use him more. They seem to stick with Latu more than they did Billingsley this year. So
Well, Billingsley to me is a Kyle Pitts type guy, really not a tight end, more of a receiver playing at that position. And Billingsley got blown up on a couple of protection issues the other night.
Yeah.
We got a Facebook Live here. If I can pull it back up. Somebody asked, says, JC, where was Georgia's defense in the SEC championship game? Like I told people.
Okay. Fair.
Kirby and them, Bryce Young had all day in the world to throw the football in the SEC championship game. And I told you, I saw issues with the Alabama offensive line from a protection standpoint against Cincinnati. Bryce still threw the ball well, obviously losing Mitchie and Jameson in this game hurt him, but he still made phenomenal throws, taking a beating. They got after number 9.
They did. And it's just, and as good as you can be on any given day, you can have a bad day. You can. I mean, as good as you are, sometimes the other team just has something on you. But they got a redemption opportunity, and they didn't allow anybody to get behind them. Now, sure, I mean, Williams wasn't there. You put Mechie and Williams up against that defense, and sure, they can be effective. They absolutely can. But Young has to have the time to throw the ball, and Georgia just didn't have. I don't know what it was. They just didn't play as well that day. But if you're standing here and trying to tell me that defense doesn't compare with some of the best the SEC has ever seen, I would disagree with that, because athletically they're as good as anybody I've seen, and I've seen a lot of great ones at Alabama and Florida even back in the 90s. Great defenses are athletic and they're aggressive, and they bring a nature of physicality that forces the other team to make mistakes. Alabama dropped passes in this game. They could have gone up 2 scores on 2 different or 3 different occasions, and they didn't. They weren't able to. It's part of what happens when you bring a style of play defensively to the field that is physical, that is fast, and that is angry. And that's what Georgia was. And I'm telling you right now, anybody in the country would want that defense. And it's obvious to me that they are as good as I've seen in this league.
Joe says on Facebook Live here, thoughts on Sale coming in as the OC. I believe he's coming in as the O-line coach. I don't think he's the OC. Billy's going to call the plays. He may have that title. But
who's going to be your defense guy? Who's going to be on? Who's the coach, defensive coordinator? Who's going to coach?
Well, I know they got the guy from Louisiana that came with him, and I'm sure they'll hire somebody else and give him a co-defensive title or what have you. I don't know. I haven't followed all that. I can't keep up with it.
I hear you.
All right. A lot of people are saying Kirby played for the national title in year 2. I believe that is correct. Billingsley is from Chicago. He's a Midwest kid. Does he go one of there? Okay. Here's Joe says Sale isn't the OC, might be the co-OC, but Billy's already said he's calling plays, and that's what gives us the ability to hire 2 O-line coaches. That is correct. Okay. All right, JC, let's switch gears a little bit, put a kind of a wrap on this game. I want to get your thoughts on basketball. Gators play LSU tonight. Look, here's a question. Here's a question I'd like to throw out there to our listeners. Bruce Pearl. Take Bruce Pearl, all the illegal crap that he's done as a coach, and then just what he does on the court. I mean, he is a phenomenal basketball coach.
He is a great basketball coach, man.
But my question would be, because the Gator fans, they're all over Mike White. It's a very good chance we start 0-3 in conference play, but the 3 teams we're losing to, all 3 could go to the Final Four. Would you take a guy like a Will Wade, who's rolling into the O-Dome tonight, who has a lot of issues as well off the court, who has tons of talent, and a guy like Bruce Pearl, or would you rather have a guy who is clean cut, do it the right way, Mike White?
When I see why Bruce Pearl had the issues he had, I just call me crazy, but I just didn't think they were that noteworthy. I mean, cooking for your guys in the backyard, things like this is all I heard. I mean, maybe there were other things. Now, Will Wade's a different story. I mean, he was literally caught admitting that he was paying these guys, doing whatever he was doing, that it just, to this day, I have no idea how this guy is still coaching in the NCAA. Listen, if Will Wade can get done with, can do what he got away with to do, who cares? That Bruce Pearl had a cookout for his guys in the backyard and fed them. I mean, this kind of crap is going away. All right, we're not going to worry about this anymore. And you can call them clean cut guys. You can say that some guys aren't clean cut and this and that. on game day, on the court, I want the coach that gets my guys to win basketball games, and he is a proven winner. He is. Bruce Pearl has done it, man. He beat Billy's pants off when he was at Tennessee. We know that. And this guy knows what he's doing. So, yeah, I would run Bruce Pearl. I was pissed that Alabama didn't hire Bruce Pearl, or that Florida could have gotten Bruce Pearl, and nobody even looked at him except Auburn. And they said, come on down. And now this guy's taken them to a Final Four, likely should have won the game when they played it in the Final Four. And he is going to probably win the SEC again this year, or win it this year. I don't even know if he won. I can't even remember who won it last year. It doesn't matter. It's all about March, right? And he's a guy that coaches well in March. He's kept his nose clean. Auburn showed why they could hire him. They had to go through all the procedural baloney, and they did it. And now I don't think anybody regrets in Auburn that guy is their coach. And same thing for Will Wade. You think those people, the 14,000 fans that were in Baton Rouge the other night, cared? Do you think they really cared? That's the difference, is that these guys are winning, and that pretty much solves everything. Now, I mean, I don't know much more than that. Chris Harry would be a lot more qualified to talk about the backgrounds of these guys than I am. But what I noticed,
I just brought it up because both Will Wade and Pearl have a lot of issues with the NCAA. John says on Facebook Live, last year I said go get Chris Beard. Now look at Texas. Yeah, Chris Beard's a tremendous coach. I don't think we have the money to pay that Texas has, and plus his entire roster are made up of transfers, just like Florida. So, but he's a very good basketball coach.
How about Texas Tech last night? How about Texas Tech last night? That guy, they walked into Baylor and beat the unbeaten number one team in the country after being down 15 points. I'd never seen that guy in my life. So sometimes
I think he was an assistant on the staff last year. I think I could be wrong.
He might have been. He looks like a guy who would clean my teeth. I mean, he's just a great. It's just a great story. I always like to see these unknowns come out of the woodwork. I never, I just like seeing the parity. And right now, though, it seems like the SEC is a very top-heavy conference with 5 or 6 teams that are really, really good. That's how I see it.
Joseph says Bruce Pearl has a much better resume than Mike White. Well, that's true, but that's why I proposed the question. Do you want a guy that has
I want Bruce Pearl.
All the issues? So, it is what it is. There are no more but there were 2 undefeated teams, as you just mentioned, going in last night in the games. Both of them lost. Baylor loses at home, as you said, to Texas Tech. And then USC, who is flying under the radar, undefeated, playing at Stanford. Nobody was allowed to come to the game except the players' parents.
They've lost their minds out there. It's amazing to me that these schools can attract anybody to want to come play over there with all the crazy, ridiculous administrative baloney that they have to live with over there. But that's the world they believe in. And listen, good for USC and those kids and those players. Those coaches. I mean, they've done a great job at Southern Cal, and that's a real team, man. I mean, that's a good team. But Stanford beat them last night, QB. So, that it can happen in the conference play, QB. We know that in conference play, you travel, you do anything. Anything can happen in conference play. It's a different animal. So
we got a text on the Titan MR text line. It comes from William. William says, "Hey guys, do y'all think that Jamison Williams should have set out of the national championship game?"
Well, I mean, that's the argument, isn't it? And I don't think the answer is yes, because he was playing for something. He was playing for a championship. And I don't think this is a career-ending deal. I don't. I guess anytime you put the pads on, QB, and every football player knows this, and I never was one on that competitive sense. I did some crazy intramural sports at Alabama, I will tell you that. But with pads on, every time you put them on, dude, you know that it could be your last game. You know that injuries are part of the game. It's just it's a violent game. It is part of what it is, and I get it. That's why I said I don't hold anything personal against these kids that opt out of these secondary bowl games. I don't. But in a championship scenario like this, you can write a ticket that goes a long way. Stetson Bennett can do anything he wants in the state of Georgia. He can even come back and play another year if he wants to. But if he doesn't, he can go off and do literally whatever he wants in Atlanta, Georgia right now and be just fine. And it's because of what happened last night. And so, he's not a pro prospect, but what he is the savior of Georgia football right now in their eyes, because he was the quarterback of the best team they've ever had. the best team they've ever had. He's up there, believe it or not. I believe this. And I'm not a Georgia fan, but I know a lot of them. Him and Herschel Walker right now are on the Georgia Mount Rushmore. That is a fact. And that's good for them. I mean, they were the reason. Those two guys were the biggest reasons why I think that they've won their 2 titles in 41 years. So, I mean,
here's what's interesting. Because I've been a Stetson Bennett guy for 2 years, and I've argued with people, whatever. He does have another year of eligibility left. They have 3 5-star highly recruited quarterbacks. Actually, let me take that back. They have 4 because they have another one coming in, and he may already be enrolled. So they would have 4 5-star quarterbacks with the little walk-on 5'9.5", 5'10" kid. Wouldn't it be interesting if Stetson beat them all out again if he came back next year? Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah, and listen, Georgia has gone through the experience of a 5-star quarterback being an abject failure who's not even with the school anymore. So it really doesn't matter. What matters is what happens on the practice field and what happens on Saturday. And right now, that little guy is the best thing they've ever had. And it's been rewarded. I mean, he didn't light up Alabama in any way, shape, or form, but what he did was beat them. And he beat them on the biggest stage. And that was something that Georgia hasn't had in a long, long time. And that kid is going to be on their Mount Rushmore. It is a fact. Him and Herschel are the 2 biggest Georgia Bulldogs ever play football at that school, period. End of story. And Kirby Smart's the other guy.
He actually played better in the SEC championship game, in my opinion, than he did the other night. John says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mellon, Stetson should walk off now. John Elway trip. Yeah, he's not coming back. As you said, JC said, I don't know what his major is. I don't know if he's want to be a financial advisor or whatever, but that dude can be hired by the biggest firm in Atlanta, Georgia, and go work for them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, somebody could get him a car dealership, put his name on the window, and they'll sell more Chevys and Fords than anybody in the state. So there's no question. I mean, good for him. I mean, he's a cool kid. When he was on Good Morning America the other day, he could barely speak. He was still, I think, in that altered state of celebration. And God bless them. They deserve it. Good for them. I don't care. Lewis Seen, he said he felt like he got run over by a truck when they interviewed him in the morning on ESPN. They celebrated hard because they worked hard and they played hard. They got what they deserved. Usually that's what happens. And but listen, I mean, they're not going anywhere, folks. This team's going to be right there. They dominate the East, and they'll be right back in the same scenario, I think, next year.
All right, before we let you go again, Gators play LSU tonight in the O'Connell Center at 7 o'clock. Right now, there are 3 winless teams in conference play in the league: the Gators, the Dogs, and Arkansas, which is surprisingly, Arkansas was supposed to have a really good team this year. They're sitting at 0-3. There's 2 undefeated teams. Auburn sits at 4-0. The Aggies under Buzz Weeks, who I think is a great coach, they're 3-0. They're surprising people. LSU rolls in at 2-1. So it's early in the season. This is like, people talk about a must-win game. Gators need to find a way to win it, especially on home court. Well, JC,
let me say real quick before I go, I just want to say Happy New Year to my lovely and beautiful wife over at the beach. I love you, Carmen. I'll be over there soon, babe. Happy New Year, and I love you very much. And we're going to have a big 2022. I just want to get that out there for her who's watching over at our beach. So thanks, QB. Happy New Year to you. And let's get this year. Let's have a big year for Pot Up and for the viewers.
All right, JC. Have a good day. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, buddy. Thanks.
That's JC. Join us on the Titan MR hotline. We're going to now take a quick timeout. Come back. We'll be joined by CBSSports.com senior writer covering the NFL, Pete Prisco. Get his thoughts on all the coaching moves and the NFL playoffs. You're watching and listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the morning.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, won't back down. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Great clips. It's going to be great. Our Gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, South State Bank, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co. Some of our touchdown sponsors are MB Listing, McDonald's of Gainesville, My IT Masters, Gainesville Neon and Signs, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Avra and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Ruse Ogra Agent, State Farm Insurance, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit potupwithshane.com and click the Advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure you follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Celebration Points where the Gators go to celebrate with premium brands like Nike, Regal Cinemas, Le Macaron, Dave & Buster's, Medici's, Palmetto Moon, and the HBC's restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, now serving brunch on Saturdays and Sundays. We'll see you at Celebration Point where the Gators go to celebrate. We're going to go back to the Titan MR hotline, and we're joined by Pete Prisco, Senior NFL Columnist for CBS Sports.com. You can follow Pete on Twitter at PriscoCBS. Good morning, Pete. How are you, my man? I appreciate your time.
Good. What's up, Shane? How are you?
I'm doing well, man. Hey, NFL, man, what a year. Pete, obviously I played a long time in the league or sat on the bench a long time in the league. Been fortunate to do that, but I've never been a big NFL guy. I'll watch a few games here and there, but I'll be dang, Sunday, I didn't have much to do, so I sat around the house, and I've never seen a day like that day on Sunday in the NFL. How about you?
I tell you what, it was crazy, with Jacksonville as a 14-point underdog, beating the Colts, who looked lifeless in that game for whatever reason, and Carson Wentz really struggled, and that opened up everything. I mean, it opened up, what could happen at the nighttime game, and what if there was a tie, and that whole drama in the Chargers-Raiders game, and the Steelers rallying in overtime to win to get themselves a chance to get in, and then they do get in. And then you have the 49ers going into the Rams and beating them to get into the postseason with New Orleans getting out. Look, that's the greatness of that league. And every, week in and week out, it's a war, but there's always stories at the end of the year. And it couldn't have ended with a better game. I mean, that was crazy. You had a coach going for it on his own 18. What a moron that decision was. Boy, I don't get that. and then, why did he call timeout at the end of it? He said he was trying to get his heavy personnel in the game, but it looked like the Raiders were going to play for the tie. I mean, just the drama never ends in that league, and I think that's why we're setting up for a great postseason.
I was going to ask you, Pete, do you really think that the Raiders are just going to let the clock run out and say, you know what, both us and the Chargers are going to screw the Steelers? Do you think that was what they were going to do?
No, what I think was going to happen, because you can go back and look, and I went back and watched it. They had a different personnel in the game, which is why the Chargers decided to, try and match up. But when they came back, they put their blocking tight end in the game and took Waller off the field. Now, if they were going to run with Waller on the field, he's not a great blocker. So clearly they're thinking, okay, we'll take our 3 yards. We're not going to kick the field goal. Then we go to overtime. But once they called timeout, then they put the blocking blocking tight end on the field. He came down and actually blasted Bosa, opened up a little lane, and he got the 10 yards. And then once he got the 10 yards, they said, okay, you know what? We're going to go and kick the field goal. And so I think that's how that played out. The other thing is they put their heavy package on, but they only had one linebacker on the field. And one of the guys, what they did is they put 3 down linemen, put the 2 ends standing up like they always do in that package, but they only had one linebacker. And so the other guy playing the linebacker was the safety down. And so were you really in a stop the run package? So I think he messed up by calling a timeout. He didn't need to do that. Play it out, see if they get 3 yards. If they get 3 yards, they're not going to kick a 50-yard field goal and risk the block. They take the tie and they both get in.
All right, Pete, let's talk coaches real quick before we get into the playoffs. Obviously, the Jags in our area with Urban coming back, man, what a mess that was. Where do you think the Jags go from here?
Well, I think they need to hire somebody who has head coaching experience because it's so bad inside that building. I mean, the culture is terrible. And first and foremost, they need to get rid of Balky, too. I mean, let's be honest about that. And I believe the only reason he's in there right now is because Shad Khan doesn't have anybody to ask football questions in those rooms when he's interviewing guys. Who's going to ask them? He has his son, but they're not going to ask the football questions. They need a football guy to ask questions, and then they can decide whether to keep him or not. I doubt they'll keep him because nobody wants to work with him. And so I think they'll get rid of him and hire a coach with experience. Jim Caldwell would be a great guy to come into that building and change the culture. He's a great guy to work with the quarterback, and he needs help. I think he's got the personality that would fit with the players. They would respect him, and he's had success. I mean, this guy's had success in the NFL. So I think that him or Doug Peterson or somebody with head coaching experience needs to go in there and clean it all up.
Is Jim Caldwell coaching anywhere right now?
No, he was out for. Remember, he had a health issue. I don't know if it was him or his family, remember, but he was with Miami and he sat out, and so that's why And he's 66, so there's some concern. But you look around the league nowadays, Shane. Some of those guys, there's Belichick and Carroll and Bruce Arians. They're not kids anymore either. So if you get 5 years out of them, let them go in there and clean it all up. I think that's the right way to do it. Or Doug Peterson or somebody who can go. It's been such a mess for the last year and a half. I mean, what that guy did in that building was a disaster. I mean, players couldn't stand them. People in the training staff and everywhere else, nobody could understand why he was so nasty to them. And that's just who Urban Meyer was. He just wasn't warm and fuzzy, and they need to change that culture.
Yep. All right, the Dolphins. Were you surprised that they got rid of Brian Flores?
Yes and no. Yes, because I think from a coaching standpoint, he deserved to stay there. No, because that was a political move. There was infighting inside the building. Flores can be gruff and tough to work with, and he and Greer didn't get along. Chris Greer didn't get along. There were some issues between the two of them. There were some, issues between him and some of the players. But again, that happens in the NFL. If that's the reason you're getting rid of a guy who actually had his team in the midst of the playoff race after a bad start, I think that's foolishness. So, yes, I was surprised, and no when you hear the talk of what was going on inside that building.
Andy's got a question on Facebook Live brought to you by Metal Law. Does Leslie Frazier go back to Chicago to coach?
I think that would be he's another one, a great hire. I think that'd be a great hire for the Bears. That's another guy who gets the respect, has the number one ranked defense in the league. People don't realize that. The Bills are the number one ranked defense in the league. He's a smart guy, and he's also a good guy, and not one of those guys that's gonna. He knows when to push, but he knows when to hold back, and I think that's good. So I think he'd be great. My question for Leslie Frazier would be, what's your offense going to be? Who's going to be your offensive coach? And I think Leslie would be a good coach in a lot of different areas. I think Leslie in Jacksonville, they should talk to him as well. He's another guy that could go in there and clean up that mess.
Yeah, I agree. So out of all the openings out there, Pete, which one, in your opinion, is the most attractive with the players that you think are going to be returning? But which one do you think is the best job?
I think Chicago and Jacksonville are the two best because they have the two young quarterbacks. I mean, you look at it on the paper, you got Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. You got somebody to build that thing around. You go to the Giants, you got uncertainty with Daniel Jones. I mean, that's a situation. Miami, do you know if Tua is any good? I mean, that's still part of the reason why he's probably getting fired because of Tua. So I think there's some uncertainty in a lot of those jobs. The Raiders job, I don't think it's going to come open. The Broncos job, they don't have a quarterback right now. People are assuming Rodgers is going to go there. That's an assumption. You don't know. So I think when you look at it in this league, and this, Shane, if you have a quarterback, you're going to be a good coach. If you don't have a quarterback, you're not going to be a good coach. So if you have Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, I think those are the two best places to go.
Speaking of the young quarterbacks, I was thinking about this when you were coming on. I was with 4 first-round quarterbacks that they drafted when I was in the league. Caden McNown in Chicago, Patrick Ramsey in Washington, J.P. Lossman at Buffalo, and then Carson Palmer at Cincinnati. Well, obviously, I knew right away after watching about a week or two of them practice whether they could play in that league or not. And the 3 that didn't last very long, I knew immediately they weren't going to be there very long. Now, Carson Palmer, I knew the first time I saw him throw a football, I was like, holy cow, this dude is special. And when you talk about Justin Fields, maybe I'm in the minority. I don't know if he can play, Pete. I know he's in a bad situation right now, but when I look at quarterback play, I need a good decision maker, and I need somebody that can throw accurate and can anticipate. I'm not sure he can do either one of those. Am I wrong?
Well, he didn't show much of that this year, obviously. But that's, again, it's a bad staff. It's a bad system for him, I think, and he can rip it, and I think he's athletic enough. But you're right. The next step for him is going through get to the point where you put your foot in the ground, you go through your progressions instead of going the one and run. That's what happens with these young quarterbacks who can move. They don't go through their progressions. When you watch them, I think there's something to really like there. And I think the right coach can make him a good quarterback in the right system. Everybody's, look how he runs and run. I don't want him running. I want him spinning the football. I want him throwing the ball and go through his progression. So you're not wrong in your assessment, but I think there's more there than what we're seeing. So, and I did the work on him leading into the draft. I liked him a lot better than some of those other guys. I love Lawrence, number one. The guy that's not getting the due, and he was one of my favorite guys leading into the draft, is Davis Mills. Davis Mills looks like an NFL quarterback. If you watch him, and he doesn't have anything around him, he looks good. And I think they got their guy, and now they can just peddle Deshaun Watson. If he gets his legal situation remedied, they can send him packing.
Yeah, Davis Mills I like a lot. We got a Facebook Live here question for you, Pete, brought to you by Melton Law. Do you see any college coaches getting a head coaching job in the National Football League?
Not this time around, I don't know. You always heard Matt Campbell's name mentioned, and I don't think that's going to happen this time around. What Urban did, and look, he's been a college coach and a successful college coach, but it's a lot easier to coach in college when you recruit everybody, and then they play themselves, and that's what Urban Meyer did. I think his body of work hurts him. It hurts the college coach. So to answer that question, I would say no.
Text here on the Titan MR text line from Jim. Jim wants to know, Pete, there has been some talk about moving the Super Bowl. Do you think that happens?
They don't want to, but if it got to the point where, California's restrictions were out of control and to the point where people couldn't go to the game, then I think they would move the game. But as of right now, there's contingency plans for Texas, but I doubt they move the game.
When would they have to make that decision by?
Probably soon, because you got logistics and hotels and everything. It would have to be made pretty quickly, unless you decided you were going to hold a scaled down version of it, and which is they're scaled down now anyways. There's going to be so many restrictions in California. There's going to be a lot of things that aren't happening, so it will be scaled down.
Before we get to the playoff games, I want to ask your opinion on this, since you've been covering the NFL for so long. If you had one quarterback to start, Pete Prisco is the head coach, general manager, everything in charge of an NFL organization, which quarterback do you want to run your program?
In history?
In the history of the game.
Marino.
Doesn't matter what age they are or any of that.
Marino?
Okay.
And here's why.
Mine is... Okay, go ahead.
Marino was the best passer who ever lived, in my mind. The ability, what he did in an era where they beat the daylights out of your little receivers, and he was throwing to tiny little guys too. He was, he set the bar for throwing the football. So I'm thinking, if I'm the head coach and I can take that and put my system and my team around him, I'm going to have success throwing the ball. With these rules, he would throw for 6,000 yards in this era. So Marino would be my pick, even though he didn't win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I mean, I never really thought about him. I mean, I watched him play, but obviously not as now how I watch the game now. Mine would be Aaron Rodgers. I just think he's the most talented guy I've ever seen, the way he throws the football. Do you think he wins the MVP?
I do. I do. I think all that talk about the vaccine stuff was garbage. I mean, anybody who wouldn't vote for somebody for something other than what they did on the field is ridiculous. I mean, that's absurd. And by the way, I am one of the voters, so I would never hold something like that against them.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. At Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. A few more minutes with Pete Prisco. Getting to the NFL playoffs. Before the season, back in August, I picked the Rams versus the Buffalo Bills, with Buffalo winning it all. I don't feel real good about the Rams right now. They can't block me rushing the passer. Right now, which teams does Pete Prisco like to make it to California?
You picked Buffalo to win it all?
I did.
So did I, and I'm sticking with it. I still think they've had their little problems during the season. They don't run the ball well enough. How the heck did they lose to Jacksonville in the 9-6 game where they only ran it with the running backs 9 times? But I'm sticking with that one. I think they beat New England this week. I think they can win at Kansas City. I think they're the team to beat in the AFC. I picked Tampa Bay before the season. I don't like it now. I'd revise it and pick the Packers. So I think it'll be the Bills and the Packers. I'm with you on the Rams, by the way. I watched the tape from that game the other day. The 49ers beat the daylights out of those guys up front the other day. I just dominated them. The interior 3 of the Rams is a major problem, and the right tackle's not that great in pass protection either. That's going to be a problem when you get to the postseason, and starting this week with Arizona. I agree. I think they have problems on their offensive line.
I watched that Rams game. It was 17-0 Rams, and I don't know if I've ever seen an NFL team play as hard as the 49ers did to make the playoffs. And they didn't come out like slinging it around being down 17-0. They basically said at halftime, we're going to run it down your throats. Speaking of the 49ers, can they go deep in the playoffs with that defense, their front 4? And I don't know how Jimmy Garoppolo is throwing the football with torn tendons in his thumb. That blows my mind.
And he actually threw pretty well. That's the amazing thing.
Yeah.
Yes, Shane, they can go far, and they're the team that nobody wanted in. If you're looking at it on the surface, you wanted the Rams to beat them and get them out. You don't want them in. They can run it. They're physical. Deebo Samuel's a special player. Kittle's a special player. And then you go to the defensive side. You mentioned that front 4, and everybody knows Bosa, but the rest of those guys, Armstead had a great day the other day, and Reed and Street, the interior guys that. Yeah, and the linebackers can fly. I mean, they're not great in the secondary, but they've only given up 183 yards a game in passing in the last 3 games. So, yeah, they can. I think they beat Dallas. That's one of my upsets this week. I think they beat the Cowboys this week.
Yeah, I like that too. We got a text here before we let you go on the Titan MR text line. Larry wants to know, can the Titans win the AFC, and how effective do you think Derrick Henry will be coming off that injury?
It's tough to evaluate the injury. You don't know, but look, they wouldn't put him on the field and risk that guy if he wasn't back at least to 90% or, close to it. So I think he'll be fine running the football. The Titans are physically and mentally as tough as any team in the league. They played more players this year than any other team in a non-strike year because of COVID and injuries and everything else. And here they are with the 1 seed. That tells you how tough they are. My concern is, can they throw it well enough when they need to? Because you're going to need to at some point. If you have Buffalo and Kansas City in that conference, you're going to have to throw the football at some point. So, yes, they can get to the Super Bowl. Yes, they're tough physically, and they take it on the characteristics of their coach. But my one concern is, when need be, can they throw it around if they have to?
I agree. Pete, appreciate you taking the time, my man. Let everybody know how they can read all your stuff.
CBSSports.com. You can see me on CBS Sports HQ almost every day. That's our streaming service on, you can see it everywhere. And then also at Prisco CBS, if you get mad at me, I'll probably cut you off, though. One more thing, Jane. How many jobs does Chris Doring have?
Doring owns a mortgage company in Gainesville. He's a big sponsor of our program, and then he works for the SEC Network. So,
see him on the SEC Network. I didn't know he had 2.
Yeah, I don't know how much he does at the mortgage business. He got so many good employees over there that kind of run it. He just kind of shows up and puts his name on the building, I guess.
Well, good for him. Good for him.
Yeah.
And good for you that you're still in the media business. I like it.
Yeah, I'm a media boy now, as Coach Spurrier calls it. So, Pete, good stuff, buddy. Appreciate it, man.
Take care, Shane. All right, you got it. Take
Pete
care.
Prisco. Join us on the Titan MR hotline. Again, you can follow him on Twitter. It's great, at Prisco CBS. We're going to take our final time out, come back, wrap up this Wednesday edition.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, won't back down. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Great Clips, it's gonna be great. Our Gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, South State Bank, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co. Some of our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Rib Company, Doreen Wiebe Realtor, Caldwell Banker, MM Parish, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Wrap Spot, Okito America, Gators Dockside, Style Cuts, Big Mills Cheesesteaks. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit potupwithshane.com and click the advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure you follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. At South State Bank, we understand that small businesses need a community business partner that they can rely on. South State has 4 convenient Alachua County locations. South State Bank, banking forward, member FDIC. I want to thank JC and Pete Prisco for taking time to join our program today on the Titan MRI hotline. Folks, if you need any type of MRI, give my man Joe a call at Titan MRI. He'll take very good care of you. Kyle says here on Facebook Live, I think it's referring to, does Dan Quinn leave Dallas for a head coaching position? Kyle says he was asked to interview for the Jags, but he declined, so it won't be Jacksonville. Yeah, I think he's going to interview at Denver for sure. Hey, folks, Wrap Spot is expanding. Wrap Spot's opening a second location in the heart of Gainesville, Custom Car Zone at 1931 North Main Street. Wrap Spot has teamed up with a crew at Vibrant Vinyl, works to offer color change wraps, advertising wraps, custom striping, hood wraps, and wall wraps. Don't forget the Gators play tonight, 7 o'clock, against the LSU Tigers in the Exact Tech Arena. Big game. Gators need to find a way to win this game no matter what. Hope you enjoyed today's program. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. Today's show is a wrap brought to you by Wrap Spot. Have a great day.